evening, everybody. Welcome to Courtroom Insider. I'm Nate Eaton. It is March 26th, 2026. So glad you're with me tonight. I am back from vacation, as you can tell, back in the studio, and have a really interesting, fascinating Courtroom Insider tonight, not because of me, but because of my guest. Juror number 4 in Kouri Richins' trial will be here momentarily. This is the juror. I don't know if you followed along my live updates, who during the verdict, in my view, became quite emotional. I could see it almost appeared as if he had tears forming in his eyes as the verdict was read. And I watched them all, and he's one that I'm like, oh, I hope I get to talk to him one day. And that day is today. He and I spoke earlier today for about 75 minutes, and he was candid in what it was like serving on the jury, and you will hear from him shortly. It's so good to be back with you. We had a wonderful spring break. Our family, for the first time ever, did a Disney cruise. We haven't gone on a family vacation in quite some time. I've because of these trials that we've been covering and work and other things. My kids are in different things. We finally got to get away for the week, and so we did a Disney cruise, and we've never done it before. And they're expensive. They're compared to the other cruise lines. They're quite expensive, and we were hesitant. And my brother is like, "You got to go, you got to go." So we went, and then we spent a few days in. So that left out of San Diego, and then we spent a few days at Universal Studios and SeaWorld, and got home late last night, and back to work today. But my wife and I did a video about. So many of you have reached out asking about Disney Cruise. Is it worth it? What was it like? Because it is quite expensive, more expensive than other lines. Like I said, my wife and I put a video on our Meetin' the Eatons YouTube channel that you can go watch where we talk all about our vacation. So I won't talk about that tonight here on Courtroom Insider, even though many of you have asked about Disney, what we liked, what we didn't, and if we would do it again. So that's over on our other channel. But for now, we're gonna kind of stick with the Richins case and this juror interview. I got a lot of feedback after my interview with Christy last week that I did from a hotel pool in San Diego the night before our cruise. And again, my thanks to Christy for speaking with me. She did such a great job. And a lot of times jurors can, at least the jurors I've spoken with over the years, say that it can be therapeutic in a way to come and tell their story, to just kind of get it all out at one time. And that's one of the reasons that I like to do what we do here, is to just give them a voice that's not going to be edited. It's not going to be cut down into a 1-minute package that airs on the news and then they move on. We're going to actually give you the time and the space here. And I think that you appreciate that and like that. I know I do. I learn out of anytime I cover a trial, after there's key people I want to interview, and I think jurors are always some fascinating ones, and it can take time for some jurors to talk. I know Lori Vallow in her trial in Boise, it took a year before one of the jurors, Laura, spoke with me. We sat down in her backyard, and she had gone to therapy because it was such a horrible case, and she had young children herself. And so it can take time to talk, but I appreciate those that do decide to talk. So without me talking anymore, let me get straight to my interview with Tony. He was juror number 4 in the Kouri Richins case, and here's what he had to say. Tony, it's so good to see you. I just want to start, I guess, from the beginning. Do you remember the day that you got your jury summons?
I don't remember what day it was. I mean, I remember getting it. It wasn't a case that I was overly familiar with. My wife had talked about it, or I'd heard her talking about it a little bit just because it was local. But it wasn't talking to me. It was talking to others that were in the vicinity. So I actually heard it kind of secondhand that way.
But you hadn't been following it, obviously, and
Yeah.
didn't know. Did you know how big of a deal it was?
No, I mean, I'm not a big social media follower, and I don't really, I mean, the only really local news that I watch is the weather. So it didn't seem like it was that big of a case to me. I mean, even through the trial, to be honest, I continued on my normal path of the shows I watch, the news I watch, and it never came up on any of my feeds or anything like that.
Had you served on a jury before, Tony?
I hadn't served on a jury. I'd been called for a case once here in Salt Lake City, but wasn't selected.
Okay. So, what did you think when you actually got the notice that you were going to be on the jury?
Um, I mean, mixed feelings. I mean, it was 5 weeks initially at the start. It was like, well, it's going to be a long jury. Um, but I feel I mean, that's my responsibility as a citizen, prior military. So felt the compunction to serve didn't bother me. So it was fine. I was neither excited nor trying to get out of it.
Do you remember, Tony, some of the questions you were asked by the prosecution and the defense during jury selection
On the form or when they did their
when they actually did the interviews?
the only question really that they had for me is what had to do with my response to the prosecution and there was a sliding scale that they wanted you to fill out and mine was slightly negative and they were asking me about that and it was under the cross or under questioning. I was like, well, the only reason I said it that way is because if I'm assuming if I'm being prosecuted, I'm going to have a a feeling against the prosecution if I'm the one being prosecuted.
Right.
So I mean, so that was really their only question. I mean, when they clarified it, it was just in general. I'm like, no, I'm pretty neutral that way then.
I see. So you get the notice that you're going to be on the jury, and then did you have to, coordinate with your job to take time off, or were they cool with it?
Fortunately, I'm self-employed.
Okay.
So for me, it didn't impact me that much. I mean, I have a part-time job, and they were pretty accommodating.
But your self-employed job, your boss was okay with it, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so do you remember going in the first day and seeing Kouri Richins for the first time? And what were your thoughts? You knew it was a murder case, right? Like they told you
Correct.
during jury selection.
Correct. I did know it was a murder case. I mean, that much I had known. I had known that there was the accusation was it was poisoning.
Mm,
I knew that she had written a child's book or a storybook that was for children. At the time, I actually didn't know if what how would that actually pertain to the case.
mm.
I didn't know if it was exactly, and again, because I hadn't followed it, didn't really care at the time. So when I got into trial, I guess it brought it home to reality. I mean, because you put a face to the name and the situation. My first experience or my first reaction to seeing Kouri Richins was um, my interpretation of it is that she looked either scared or nervous. I mean, she looked uncomfortable. I mean, she was throughout the trial, she was fairly stone-faced, didn't react a lot to a lot of things. Um, my initial, I mean, when you first get in there, you're trying to read the room, and because again, first time that you're doing it, so you read the room, you read the people, the prosecution, the defense, um, and I looked at the defendant, and I didn't get a big read on her. I looked, or I did at least. I looked from time to time to see how they reacted. Didn't really react much. So after a while, I stopped looking around at that and just paid more attention to the case. Or I mean, I know, and I won't say I was. I want to mean I don't want to make that sound like I wasn't listening before. It was just in between witnesses or when there was plenty of motions that they had through the trial. So in that time, I would take a look, try to get a grasp of the surroundings.
Did you know that the trial was being televised around the world? That millions of people potentially were watching.
I knew it was being televised. Again, I didn't. I didn't probably know the scope of it. I probably didn't even know the scope of it until after the trial was over. That as many people were interested in it, it seemed like a local case to me initially.
Right. So tell us about that first kind of meeting as jurors, because you're told to come to the courthouse, what, arrive at like 8 o'clock?
Correct. Yeah,
And
we got there early. So it was interesting. I mean, it was the bailiffs were very good the whole way through. They were very protective of us. I mean, again, I think you know that there was an initial issue or that one of the jurors had seen a drone. There was a little bit of a investigation to make sure it was their drone that she saw. Um, but it was pretty straightforward. We would get there early. Again, didn't know any of the jurors prior. Um, was surprised in the long run as to how well we got along. Everybody was there for the right reasons, it seemed. And all through the trial, I don't think we had any controversy whatsoever with the jurors. And so it was from that side, it was pleasant because it was nice to be able to get along with the jurors.
yeah, if you
Know that we were there for something serious. So
absolutely, if you can get 12 people to, sit in a room and not talk about the one thing that everyone wants to talk about, that's pretty impressive if you can all get along. So opening statements happen, you've got the prosecution and the defense. When you kind of get a scope as to what you're going to be hearing, what were your thoughts when, Brad Bloodworth laid it all out?
but the opening again, so it's kind of like drinking from a waterfall or a water hose. I mean, because so initially, I mean, you're getting a lot of information, and between trying to write everything down, we did take copious notes. So writing everything down, listening to the juries. Like I said before, initially you try to get some reads on some people to see how they react to some of the comments or some of the accusations. Didn't seem to get much of that. But the initial opening statements basically gave us a purview of what we were going to hear. Some of the people that you thought were going to be a priority or important during the case. Um, I'm trying to think of anything that stood out. We did watch the 911 call. Tough to watch a little bit. Um, did watch the reactions to both some of the people in the pool and the defendants when that was happening, but it it seemed like it was going to be a straightforward case, at least from Bloodworth's standpoint. It seems like they had a lot of information. We took the notes that he gave on some of it. Again, this was his opinion during opening, so didn't put a ton of weight into it. Waited for the witnesses to come forth. Um, Same thing on the defense side. The defense side. It looked like it was initially going to be a reasonable doubt case, unless they brought something forward. I mean, they didn't they didn't tip their hand anything more than that initially in the case. So that's kind of what we were expecting.
Yeah, Kathy Nestor made the point that um, with the image of the old woman and the young woman, and I think she said you could look at it like a witch or a widow. Did that resonate with you?
Not really.
No.
I mean, I understood what her point was, but it didn't have any bearing on the case at the time. So
Right. The 911 call, you mentioned it. Not only, well, you hear the 911 call, and then in the closing, the prosecutor put up a timer from the time the dispatcher told Kouri to start CPR until she actually apparently did it.
correct.
Did that resonate? That timer?
Yeah, I would say the Bloodworth's closing was actually pretty good. It did tie a lot of pieces together. It gave a lot of information or tied information that was sown throughout the case that sometimes through the case you were kind of wondering, okay, where is this going and what's the purpose of these witnesses? But in the end, the the amount of time that it took Kouri to actually interact with uh, Eric at the time, that seemed a lot. I mean, my sense is that if that had been me, what would I have done? And I know it's hard to put yourself in those situations or react that way. But if my spouse had been the one that I had found unreactive, not breathing or anything like that, I think that as a spouse, you would move heaven and earth to try to get them. I mean, your first focus would be try to get them breathing, or try to get them reacting and that kind of stuff. And it seemed, especially by the time that we had got to closing, I mean, I'd already heard all the evidence that was going to be presented. Um, it seemed she was very reluctant to initially start it, and her interest was elsewhere.
Yeah. Let's talk about the body cam footage from the night that the police went to the home. What were your thoughts when you saw Kouri reacting the way she did?
Again, it seemed odd. Um, and initially, again, that's one of the first things that we saw was the body cam footage. So it was a little bit. Um, you didn't want to react too much to it, because again, I don't know how I would react in that situation. Um, I have to say it did seem odd. There were things that she said. Um, a number of times where she said she didn't want to call Eric's father. There was one other thing that she said she didn't want to do that seemed odd at the time. And again, covering her face the whole time. Again, while it seemed odd, I didn't jump to a conclusion with that just because I don't know how I would react.
Yeah.
Um, having watched it the second time meant more um, during the closing than it did the first time. So the first time, again, you're still trying to put the players in place. You're trying to see who's all there. Um, we watched as in detail as much as we could. Um, but again, you're still getting a feel for the people at the time and the situation and the experience, or the what happened.
One of the things that stuck out to many people was the comparison between Corey's reaction and Katie Richins' reaction in that video. And Katie, you heard from her; she testified, and Eric's dad. What was it like having them right there on the stand recounting the horrors of that night?
Well, you did feel for him. I mean, either way, whether Kouri would have been found guilty or not, they still lost a son. I mean, so either way, you could with especially Katie on the stand. She seemed upset. I mean, it was. Um, I mean, even though 4 years had passed, I mean, again, same thing. If that happened to you, what would you do? Um, is was my first thought. She seemed to me believable. Again, I think she obviously had a grudge against Kouri, but her perception at the time was there was suspicion there, if not felt like she was guilty already at the time. This is from Katie's perspective. I'm talking.
Mhm.
Uh, so I anticipated or expected her to act some of the way. I think she did pretty well. I did feel for her. It was a sad situation, to be honest.
Yeah. Another witness that was memorable was Carmen Lauber. Tell me your thoughts about her testimony. And do you believe her? Did you believe her?
I believe she was trying to tell the truth for the most part. I knew that Carmen Lauber was a drug user, had her run-ins with the law. Um, so she seemed like she was trying to tell the truth most of the time. I took that into account. Um, by the time that she was on there, we knew that digital forensic was going to be introduced. And so I didn't put a lot of weight into her testimony as to exactly, because again, I know there was an initial um, uh, count is she thought that she had met with Kouri 4 times, and the prosecution, or excuse me, the defense said it was 3 times. Well, we knew that the digital evidence was eventually going to sort that out.
Right.
And so that discrepancy didn't bother me initially. I mean, it had been 4 years ago. She had shown that her recollection was iffy and suspect. So I didn't put a lot of weight into her exact things that she was saying. I more so what I took from her testimony is, one, she had been approached by from Kouri to get some drugs. And initially, I believe that the drugs that they wanted was oxycodone or hydrocodone, I think it was. Um, so the initial attempt to try to get her to buy drugs for her, and again, from Kouri's standpoint, it was for a client that had back pain. So that to me was significant down the road, when she wanted the next drug that was stronger, and possibly the Michael Jackson drug. So that was significant because, from my standpoint, why would somebody with back pains need the Michael Jackson drug? I mean, the propofol is not something that you use for pain. So I thought that was significant. But as for Carmen Lauber, I thought she was a decent witness. I understand that she had immunity. I understand that she had to be cooperative with the police, but it didn't. I mean, it came across that she was trying to tell the truth to the best of her knowledge. And I get, and in cross-examination several times, I mean, like for when she went to the concert and she did things outside of her probation, she was still untruthful. And that didn't have a bearing on the case, at least to me.
I see.
She was going to be truthful as long as it benefited her. I mean, she didn't have any hesitation to lie at times. But again, the important part was did her testimony corroborate with the digital evidence?
And you're saying because the digital evidence backed up what she said, then maybe the other times where she wasn't truthful or forgot, you were willing to forgive that.
Absolutely. I mean, the digital evidence was the true star in that case. If they didn't have digital evidence, reasonable doubt would have been easier, a lot easier.
Interesting. The defense really was forceful with Carmen. I would say out of all the witnesses, they really spent a lot of time trying to discredit her. Was any of that effective? I mean, were there points where you're like, oh, they have a point?
I think they overdid their hand, to be honest, with that a little bit. I mean, it was clear early on that her memory wasn't great. That her testimony would be subject to some randomness of the facts. But again, knowing that the digital evidence was either going to back her up, and that's what I waited for. I mean, so when the digital evidence came in, it was either going to back her up or it was going to dismiss her testimony, and that was the big part. I think they overdid their hand by trying to discredit her to the degree. I mean, they early on, like I said, they showed that her memory was suspect. And they just that was almost painful to watch, a little bit, because they drug it out so long, and they just kept going back and back. And I mean, you began to feel a little bit sorry or sympathetic towards her, and I don't think that was their intention, but that's what ended up happening.
Yeah, I know Christy the other day told me that it was really uncomfortable when Wendy Lewis asked her if she had a learning disability. And you could tell Carmen was uncomfortable with that question too.
Right. Yeah, and it again, it wasn't pertinent to the case. So it just I don't know that I don't know if they were scoring any evidence. I mean, even if she did or didn't, how did that affect whether she bought the drugs or that just didn't have any relevance. I didn't see.
Who was the witness that stuck out to you the most?
It depends on your point of view. There's a couple witnesses that were significant in the fact that they laid a baseline, and that would be so Carmen Lawler obviously gave the testimony that Kouri had reached out and asked for her, and as far as the digital evidence, it showed that what she was saying with that was correct, and so that was significant. So that started the case off. The second part or the second people that I would put in there would be the medical examiners. So the medical examiners showed that fentanyl was what caused his death. It gave some insight to how it was ingested. It wasn't taken another way. But it also showed that there were, I think it was, trying to think of the antipsychotic drug that was in his
Oh, right.
Seroquel.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That Seroquel was in his system also, which I made a side note of that and and reflected on that later. And that came in later because that was actually a drug that was prescribed to Kouri. Um, and I mean, moving forward into the trial, my thoughts were if Eric had a drug problem, why was he taking Seroquel? So I mean I don't see a benefit to have taken that at the time. So but back to the factual matters of okay, fentanyl was the cause of death. It was ingested. So those two points were irrefutable. So that's what's significant. But probably the okay, then you had the undercover officer. So his testimony to me was significant in the fact that he laid out without any reason to alter his testimony that fentanyl was as early as 21, late 20s. That fentanyl was on the streets in Salt Lake City. So that kind of contradicted what Crozier had said that fentanyl wasn't until the end of 2022.
Yeah, the officer had said it was already going around
Right.
the time that Kouri had requested something stronger.
Right. So, but probably the most significant and entertaining witness was Todd Gabler.
The private
So,
investigator.
correct. I think it was his diligence, his professionalism, and his doghound of finding the information and some of the truth with his testimony and his evidence that he then shared with the cops. I think that's what started the case.
The defense made a kind of a big deal about that in their closing, that it was him, that he was leading the investigation, that we should be scared because it's a private person that doesn't have to follow law enforcement rules. Did that resonate to you at all?
I mean, not really. I mean, he followed the rules that he's allowed to follow. So I mean, if you don't like the rules that he follows, then change the laws that he has to follow. I mean, or put some sort of restraint on what he can bring into the case. I think he followed the rules that he was allowed to follow. Um, I don't think that he was leading the investigation. I just think he provided them information. I think from my standpoint, I mean, Summit County it's not a big city. It's not a big county. Don't get a lot of murders up here. Um, and so you feel for the guys that like you had talked earlier about some of the body cam. I think the body cam footage again when the guys are first coming in, I don't think they're not big city cops. They're not looking to say, okay, the first thing I'm going to look for is a murder investigation or some criminal wrongdoing. You have to balance that between being sympathetic to a grieving wife, that what they foresaw initially. I know the defense focused on the bottle of oxy no
The
hydrocodone.
yeah, the empty bottle found by the
Yeah, the
bed.
empty bottle that was dated in 16, that expired in 16. Um, they kept bringing that up. It didn't have a lot of relevance, had some relevance, but not a ton. So I mean, yeah, there was things that they could have done, and I think in hindsight they may have done some things differently, but it didn't change some of the facts. A better search earlier on would have been helpful. Obviously, wouldn't have changed our outcome if it would have proved um, what we thought happened.
You mentioned Gabler was a little bit of an entertaining witness. Tell me what you mean by that.
Well, I mean, again, I mean, this is movie type stuff. I mean, he comes in with a cane, dressed to the nines in a sharp suit, and with the neck brace in tow. Uh, Comes in, takes the witness stand, goes through the prosecution's thing, and he seemed fairly professional. Seems like he knew what he was doing. He was familiar with both the case. He was familiar with the legal system. Um, when the defense came on, I mean, they tried to rattle him, but I mean, he really pushed back. I mean, and so some of his responses were surprising and entertaining at the same time.
Yeah, I think most of us watching kind of felt that way that he could not be shaken. What did you think when he was on the stand and Kathy Nestor brought up what she called sext messaging between Eric Richins and his buddy?
Yeah, I mean, that was interesting because early on in the case, they had said that there was possible infidelity on Eric's side, and they had never come really back to that. And it was um, a coworker. And initially, I had thought that it was of opposite sex, not the same sex.
Right, right, right.
So when when that was the thing, and some of the text messages, what the feud that they brought out, I was like, that was what you were talking about. So I was kind of along with him, and so his response was entertaining. He didn't take it seriously, and I personally didn't either. So I was hoping that there would have been. I mean, not I wouldn't say hoping. Hoping is probably the bad word because it some of the testimony, even all the way throughout the trial, or not the testimony, but some of the emails and text messages, it's you feel kind of gross listening to some of it because it just feels voyeuristic and like I understand the need for it, but it's still like you don't necessarily want to be there doing it.
Right. Yeah, there was a lot of text messages, especially with the boyfriend.
Yeah.
Uh, Tell me your thoughts about the boyfriend taking the stand. That was a pivotal day in many people's eyes when he walked in the courtroom, clearly uncomfortable, and it appeared, at least to me, that he really didn't want to be there.
Yeah, clearly he didn't want to be there. Clearly. So I'll walk through it in the phases. I mean, his initial swearing in didn't go as planned,
Yeah.
and that was I mean, the judge then rushed us out of the
Yep.
out of the courtroom, and and it only took a couple minutes, but then brought us back in, and he was already seated. Um, it was quick to see that. I mean, I felt bad. I mean, I initially initially, I didn't know what I was gonna feel because we had heard an opening that she had a boyfriend, who it was, and the name. And they shared a snippet of a couple of the text messages showing that there was a relationship there. So having then seen him on stand and gotten his backstory, I felt for the guy. I don't think he had anything significant to do with the trial. Um, I think he's a broken guy, to be honest. Um, so his the 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 fact that he was an ex-service member, served his country, clearly probably has PTSD. Um, I think he I think he was clearly in love with Kouri. And even when he was on the stand, I mean, he was shaken to the core. Um, so that was rough. I don't think that I don't think his testimony, other than he's a part of it, and I know that there's the salacious side of it, but there's a few tidbits here and there that he shared. Um, Kouri asking him again, this goes kind of builds on the consciousness of guilt or actions that Kouri had taken throughout the things, asking him, kind of slowly asking him if he did drugs and to find out if he had knowledge or ability or access to drugs. And then afterwards asking him if he had killed anybody and how it made him feel. Odd ways to phrase it. If under the circumstances, I thought. Again, none of it by itself would bring you to a conclusion that she did it to pass the threshold of reasonable doubt. It's a culmination of all the things. It's just a small data point on the side that you say, okay, yeah, that kind of points in the same direction.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
interesting that he had remembered that she had asked him that, um, enough to then contact when he heard that had written the book to contact Eric's sister and then get in touch with the investigators.
right. I think,
Yeah.
all of it, I mean, and you have to take that at least I did. I took it into consideration second, having reflected on a second hand. It wasn't something that he came out straightforward about. It was something that came out after reflection. So you do have, it does add a bit of a question to it. So again, like I said, to me, it wasn't a major data point, um, more a data point that it just kind of reflected in the same degree. And if my lean was already one way, then I could apply it in that aspect, but not put a lot of weight on it.
Yeah.
I honestly hope that an agency out there or that will help reach out to him to try to get him help because I honestly think he needs it.
I've had a couple of agencies reach out to me hoping to get in touch with him and have passed along that information, and hopefully he can get the help. I
Well,
know a lot of people were concerned when he did walk off the stand that he was not. He clearly was emotional, putting his head down and
he was
crying.
in a bad way. Like I said, I don't think that I don't think the relationship. I mean, from the text that I did see, and over the course of the investigation that they showed through the trial, it doesn't seem like that relationship was from her side was the same as it was from his side.
Yeah, yeah, he clearly really loved her, and I think someone said he thought she loved him.
Correct.
Uh, Okay, so you heard from him. You also heard from the financial forensic accountant, who I think was a whole day on the stand. How
Yeah.
pivotal was that testimony?
Significant in the way that you kind of see how it kind of that her business kind of started to spiral out of control, um, where her debt started to amass in a way that um, I mean she was paying outrageous interest. She was making daily payments. I was trying to remember the law or the hard credit agency that she had went through. But and she just started to accumulate more and more interest and more debt, and it started to spiral out of control. I mean, she initially started to try to juggle a couple of them, and she seemed like she was doing okay with that. And again, that's a risk tolerance that you're willing to take. I mean, so it's in some investments, you're willing to take on a certain amount of risk, knowing the payment. But it just seemed like it started getting out of control with her.
Right. Yeah, I think at one point was it like 3,000 a day she was paying or was supposed
Oh
to be
yeah,
paying or
the amount of money that she was having to pay every day, and especially for the amount of money that was coming in, was unsustainable.
so you talked about the witnesses that kind of, hit home for you. Was the key piece of evidence for you those cell phone data points that they had hard evidence on?
That's the crux of the case, because that proves the connection that Kouri, or at least, so that's where Lauber comes in, because Lauber connects Kouri to asking for the drugs, and then Lauber and then Crozier. You got to see the digital information as they drove literally down to the Draper gas station and met up, and that repeated itself 3 times, and so and with the exact same pattern. So would have been nice to have been able to recover the actual texts that were sent during those messages or during those drives. Um, but the fact that Lauber was both in contact with Crozier and Kouri at the same time, you just can't get past that.
Tony, what did you think about the communication that Kouri had with her mom in jail? You all didn't know it was in jail, or maybe you assumed, but that was one thing the defense really fought hard when you were out of the courtroom to not let you all know that she had been incarcerated since the time she was arrested.
I, for me, I just assumed that she was. I mean,
You did, yeah.
under the case, I mean, it wasn't. It didn't weigh one way or another to me. It's just okay. She was incarcerated. She was accused of murder. We knew that she was arrested. I mean, they had stated that multiple times throughout the trial that she had been arrested. I had just assumed that she was arrested and awaiting trial or in jail. Um, so um, it didn't. I don't know how there was. It didn't bother me that she was in jail. I'm trying to remember if there was anything that she said that swayed me, and there may have been. I could check my notes, um, but I don't remember anything significant, at least in the telephone calls that they talked about, as to whether or not it was pertinent to the case,
The,
or at
the
least.
call the calls with her mom were about the poisoning of the sandwich. Her mom was saying, they think that you poisoned a sandwich on Valentine's Day, and Kouri's indignant that how could they think that? They're stupid, they're idiots, things like that. It was more about the attempted murder on the Valentine's Day incident.
Right. And that, I mean, it's like that didn't, like I said, it didn't sway me because you couldn't prove that significantly, that in and of itself. I mean, again, I would expect her to say that. I mean, if she's in jail for both the murder of her husband and possibly now that she knows that there's an attempted murder, um, so I didn't gather. I mean, it's what you would expect somebody in jail to say. Everybody in prison is innocent, right? So it's what I kind of expected. So it didn't significantly mean a lot. You know we knew that she bought the sandwich. We knew that she knew that Eric got sick. And that, to me, that was the like, from the attempted murders charge, that was what was significant on my side. So my side, her husband calls her saying that he's so sick that he may end up going to the hospital, and she's like, "Oh well, I'll see you in a little while." So I mean, if my sense is if that was my spouse, I mean, whatever I was doing, I would drop and come to assist them in one way or another. So
especially on Valentine's Day.
yeah, I mean, and I mean, it's again, from the salacious side, it adds to that fact that she's there with a boyfriend, and she doesn't respond to that type of a call. From that standpoint, it was difficult, just because I wouldn't have reacted that way. And then I suppose, and then obviously the damning evidence to her was a couple of days later, she got new pills that she asked for something stronger.
Yeah. You mentioned the children's book earlier, Tony. What did you think about that? And we also learned that she really didn't write it. She used a ghostwriter to write it and hoped to sell 100,000 copies in the first year.
Right. I didn't put a lot into it. It didn't have it. I mean, again, it was after the fact. I mean, it's kind of. I mean, once you got to a decision or a thought process that she was probably guilty, then it seemed in bad taste. But I think it was more so just an opportunity came up. She was willing to take the opportunity. She clearly probably still needed the money, and money obviously still was a pressing issue with her. So I didn't take a lot of significance out of it. I think, and I won't speak for the other jurors. I would think mothers might see it a little bit different than fathers do. I mean, other than it's kind of in bad taste under the circumstances, but I didn't have a problem with it as pertaining to the case.
Let me ask you, Tony, what you think the defense did well.
Wow. The way that I kind of looked at it was the defense kind of, I mean, they started with the hand they were dealt. So there was some huge obstacles that they overcame, or they had to overcome. And with the hand that they were dealt, I just think it was just kind of insurmountable, at least with what the information that they presented. They focused on discrediting, I think, most of the witnesses. I think that was their primary effort. So Carmen Laver, Todd Gabler, didn't go as hard against Crozier, which I mean, he's not the most upstanding of citizens. But all in all, I think that they had an uphill battle, and they did what they could with the cards as they were dealt. I mean, that's basically what it comes down to.
What did you think when they rested?
That I was surprised at. That was probably what caught me off guard the most in the whole trial. Again, the prosecution had rested, and we were getting ready to hear possibly what their best cards were, or best evidence was. When you go to the trial, and again, you can't talk to anybody. You can't even talk to the jurors in the jury room. You can't go home and talk to your spouse about it. You can't help but replay the day of court in your mind, or the evidence that you've heard in your mind, and try to come to I won't say a conclusion, but an idea as to where it's going to go next. And because again, as you go through the prosecution, you get more and more towards a decision, but always leaving the door open for something else to come in. I mean, you're not concrete saying, okay, this is absolutely it. This is what I think it is. And I tried not to do that, and think I did a pretty good job with leaving myself open to anything that came in. I did try to think about what would it be, or what could change my mind. What evidence could they possibly show? And tried to think of it in that aspect. And the one thing that I had thought of that again, Kouri had said that she had bought it for a client. If she could have produced a client, that they would have been able to put on the stand that said that asked her to buy the drugs, and that he had gotten all the drugs. That might have been significant, depending on how credible they were, obviously. But yeah, it was surprising. I was surprised that they arrested when they did. And I didn't hold it against them, but it shifted the burden to, okay, now I have to basically make my decision on the information that's been given. And since they chose not to give any additional information that could have benefited them more, or at least tried to, that was the risk that they took.
So were you disappointed that they didn't present anything?
Well, I won't say disappointed. I'd say shocked.
Mm-hmm. Did you want Kouri to take the stand? Did you want to hear from her?
Of course, as someone there, I assumed that she wasn't going to take a stand from the get-go. I assumed. Would it have been nice to hear from her? Absolutely. I mean, she's the one on trial, so you would want to hear her side of the story from her. But I from the get-go, I assumed that she probably wouldn't testify.
I asked what you thought the defense did well. What do you think the prosecution did well?
I think the prosecution's closing statements were their best effort. So there they tied a lot of stuff together. They gave you a story that was plausible, that you could see how one thing connected to another, and I thought that was their best effort throughout the trial. I mean, they did okay through the other things. There was times when you didn't know what some of the witnesses' true effect on the case were. So it didn't but they did tie it up in the end.
Can you kind of take us behind the scenes, Tony? What was it like during the breaks in the jury room?
In the beginning, it was I won't say awkward, but I mean, you had to find things to talk about that weren't the case, with 11 other people that you didn't know. So, and I mean, the elephant in the room obviously was the case. So that was I think we did really, really well with that. So we got to know each other. I mean, it was from my standpoint, it was a privilege to have served with the 11 people that I served with. They turned out to be both very studious people, but some of them very entertaining. Some of the stories that were told in the break room were interesting. But yeah, we got along. We did bond fairly quickly for the short time that we were there. But yeah, it was interesting, but some really, I think, some great people.
When the case was finally turned over to you, was it like a pressure valve was released that you could finally go back and talk about it with them? And what was that like? How do you choose a jury four-person?
So yeah, it was nice to it was finally nice to be able to go back and actually get to talk to the people that you spent the last 3 weeks with, and were forbidden to talk to about the reason that you were there. So from that standpoint, yeah, it was nice to open up. Um, the suggestion had been made when we got back, especially since when Judge dismissed the alternates and we found out that it was for the women, that when we went back, the suggestion was made that they thought that whatever the verdict would be, it would probably be best coming from a woman, and we were fine. Everybody was fine with that. So I didn't have a problem with that. I thought it was actually a good decision or a good idea.
And then the four-person did end up being a woman.
Correct.
What were the deliberations like? You guys came to a decision in less than 3 hours. I think a lot of people were shocked by that, but others say, well, no, there wasn't much debate there.
Well, I mean, I take some exceptions to the fact that say, and I understand the reasoning behind it. I mean, the people watching and what you get used to with some cases, what you see on TV shows and that kind of stuff. But the truth of the matter is the 8 jurors that were there had been there for the all 3 weeks. I know every day we didn't actually deliberate. But we were there, we were studious, we took notes, we listened to all the evidence. And then you go home and you still can't talk about it. I mean, so for 3 weeks, I went to bed every night thinking about the case. I woke up thinking about the case. So I mean, you think about what you've heard, where it might go, how you process the information that you have been given. So, so 3 weeks is a long time to sit there and think about one thing. So yeah, when we got to the deliberation room, we took the advice of the judge, and we let everybody give their points or their significant inputs from the trial. And we went around the table, and they would discuss it, and it wasn't like a monologue. They would talk about it, and we would talk back and forth, and then we go to the next person. They would talk about what they saw, and they would go back and forth. And it was interesting to see because a lot of people did still have different points of view, or saw it from a different angle. So when it got to me, I gave my points, and then it went around for the rest of the group, and then we went in sort of sequential order. We went with the murder first, attempted murder, and then we jumped to the
Forgery.
Actually, we went to 4 because that one was isolated because 3 and 5 were tied together because that insurance fraud and the forgery were tied together. They had to do with the same one. So we skipped and went to 4, talked about that, and then went to the other 2. From my standpoint, on the first one, I went and this is where I said earlier that the MEs and their information was pertinent. So I looked at the case backwards. So we know Eric died. And we know that he was poisoned, or he died from fentanyl, and we know that it was ingested. So at the time of the death, the only people around were him and his family. So with those first facts that he died, and he died of fentanyl, and it was ingested, you're left with only a few options. So he either committed suicide, died from an accidental overdose, or was intentionally poisoned by someone else. And that went around the room. So we initially, and we asked, so does anybody think that he died from suicide? And we all said no, because there wasn't any evidence that showed that. There was no pattern that showed that he was suicidal, that he didn't write a note, that he loved his kids, that he was planning in the future. So there's a lot of significant information that showed that was unlikely the case. So we dismissed that, and then you're left with two. Did he die from an accidental overdose? Well, that again, the evidence probably didn't show. They never. I know that they brought it up, but the evidence didn't show that was a possibility, or at least a likelihood in our mind. And with that, the fact that you accidentally die from 5 times the amount of lethal dose, that doesn't seem practical either. So, and we talked about that for a little while, that possibility. And we went through our notes and went through the information that they brought us back, and watched some of the videos, and we all came to the same conclusion that he didn't die from an accidental overdose. That he didn't seem like he was a habitual user of drugs, or even a casual of drugs, other than the gummies, which and again, one of the forensic people had said that the TCH gummies rarely come in contact with fentanyl. It's not
Right.
part of their process.
Right. So you guys went very methodically through each of the charges, discussed them, and then moved on to the next one.
Correct.
And what is that moment like when you've reached the last charge and you all agree? Is it like, okay, let's tell the judge?
Yeah, some of it we had to go around and take a number of votes. So everything wasn't as straightforward. The first one was more straightforward.
The murder.
The murder was the first charge of murder,
Yeah.
aggravated murder. But the aggravated attempted murder wasn't as straightforward. And again, as they probably know from the record, though we found her guilty, because the way that the instructions were written, you had the option of finding her and/or. So there's 2 elements, or 2 sub-elements to the account of attempted murder, whether it was for in order to by a process of going after for money, for pecuniary, or whether it was for attempted murder, or through giving the drugs.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't list that, and I could look it up to make sure I have it with me. But it doesn't say fentanyl per se. Fentanyl wasn't the only drug. It was just that a lethal dose was given.
Right. Right. When you walked in the courtroom and the verdict was delivered to her, what was going through your mind?
It was heavier than I thought it was going to be. Again, by the time we came to our conclusion and we were comfortable with our decision, it was more stressful than I had imagined. So it was, so we went in there. Um, they read the announcement. Um, I had I looked over at both Kouri when she dropped her head, and I looked over at the Richins, because you have to feel for them also. And it seemed like there was a sense of relief to them. I mean, a closure of some sort, I think.
I recall looking at you, Tony, and I might be mistaken, but it seemed as when the verdict was being read, you were a little bit emotional.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to be. I mean, it's a heavy burden. Like I said, you don't ex you didn't ex I didn't expect it to be. I mean, because we went through the trial, we saw the evidence, we came to a conclusion. So logically, in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, that's the conclusion. So you go in, you read it, and you're done with it. But like I said, it caught me unexpectedly to be a little bit more pressure than I had anticipated. I mean, I
Mm.
don't change, obviously don't change my mind about the decision. I think the decision was right. And everything that I've heard since the trial has only reinforced that.
I know that I've spoken with jurors in other cases that say the exact same thing as you. They don't expect that moment to be so heavy, even
Right.
though they stand by their decision, but it still is a heavy thing. So you leave the courthouse. What did you do? You could finally talk about it. Did you call up your spouse? What did you do?
But I don't live a long ways away. So I did go home. Um, Initially my spouse was curious because she'd already heard the verdict, and wondered why it had taken so long to get home. Um,
Oh, she wanted to talk to you already about it.
Absolutely. So, so yeah, so she had done very, very good about not. She had followed the trial, but had while I was away, but did a very, very good job of not speaking to me at all about it. And I mean, I joked initially that it was because the banter that we had is that I didn't have to. The judge told me I didn't have to talk to her. In fact, they forbid me to talk to her. So, but
Right.
no, but in all seriousness, no. So it was nice to get to finally get home and to talk about what I've been doing all day. I mean, because prior to that, during the 3 weeks, I mean, you come home, but you can't. You talk about other things, but it's still top of mind. At least for me, it was. But again, we were really diligent about following those orders and following that process.
Yeah. So your wife is watching it every day, and I'm sure she's dying to talk about it. She knows you
I
can't.
wouldn't say every day. Whenever she had time, she would catch up. She would catch up on it and
I
see what
see.
was going on. But she's neither one of us are trial or
True crime.
true crime junkies or anything like that.
Yeah.
Uh, don't think that will change, uh, but yeah, it was. I mean, because it affected us because I was called for duty. It was significant to her then.
Did you start to do a bunch of research on the case when you got home?
I wouldn't say a bunch. I've like I said, I watched your podcast with the other juror, which I thought was excellent. Um, and I've seen some of the information that has been out, and um, my wife's a little bit more of a junkie than I am about it, and so she was just wants the question. I mean, of course, I mean, it would be great to have some of the answers as to what really happened. I mean, I mean, for the first I would say probably 3 days. I mean, it was just all we talked about. I mean, just about what happened in the case, what we were thinking, what went the thing, what was the possibilities, and then I was able to talk about, okay, what did to my wife I was able to tell, okay, what was deliberation like, and the kind of the behind the scenes. To her, I would talk about it, or I let her know, but she was the only one that I would release that personal information as to what other people thought.
Yeah. Uh, what do you think about your the judge?
I thought the judge was excellent. Um, he was, I mean, that guy has the patience of Job. Um, and I mean, it was only after the case that we found out that there was even more behind the scenes that went on. But no, I mean, he seemed. I was surprised as to how he was able to maintain all the different thoughts in his heads of the different decisions he's already made, and clearly he's working from multiple inputs as he would react to the objections, and some of them were sustained, some of them were overruled, but he would literally, you could see him working through the process in his own mind. So I was impressed by him. I thought he was fair. I thought he was very patient, and he kept the tone of the case very level. And it was nice that that they asked at the end of the trial. They asked if we would stick around and speak with the judge, and all of us did.
Tony, has this changed your view of the legal system?
I wouldn't say it changed it. I appreciate the legal system. Um, I understand the system that we have. I think it's still probably the best in the world. Um, the If I was able to speak with the prosecution, um, there was things that I would probably encourage them to do. And we actually spoke to Judge Morazic about this after the trial, and he said, and he had mentioned that when he was a lawyer, that was more of the way that he pursued cases, was a storyline, even through the beginning or the running through the witnesses, because it initially, again, it's like I said before, it was like drinking from a fire hose. Is there's so much information that they give you. Some of it's relevant, some of it's not relevant, and I guess it depends on the juror. So I see the reasoning for having done it, but it it would have been more cohesive, because going into it, I mean, I was in a way, I guess it makes the closing arguments more outstanding, because the closing arguments were excellent. It pieced everything together. It put it in a story format. It put it in chronological order, and it allows you to see some of the significance of it. Like you said before, the 6 minutes before Kouri started CPR. The consciousness of guilt that she had on a number of elements, whether it was when she talked to the 911 operators, or when she wrote about notes either in her journal, or wrote notes down. She always started with like, for the night of Eric's death, she started with the drinks. Okay, well, that seems odd, that significant of a thing, that you always go back to that same point. And personally, I think it is a consciousness of guilt. Um, so I mean, throughout the trial, I had wrote down in my notes and put stars next to things that I thought were significant, and indications like that was the story. That's where the story began, and because it repeated throughout the whole trial. With 911, to the cops, to her journals, or some journal. There was a journal that she wrote or some notes that they found that she had wrote after, and then they also found the notes in the walk the dog, and
Yeah.
all of those were kind of started at the same place, and so the significance of that is not lost.
Right. Yeah. I've spoken with other prosecutors that say it's important to have a theme so that the jurors can follow the theme throughout it. You mentioned the walk the dog letter. I forgot to ask you about that. What'd you think of it?
It wasn't good for her case. I thought it was pretty damning. Uh, it clearly showed a consciousness of guilt. And again, the story that it was a fictional story that she was trying to write. Was it believable? Is that believable? I mean, I didn't think so. So it looked, if it walks like a duck, smells like, or walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. So it looked like she was trying to direct her brother's testimony.
Yeah. Tony, I really appreciate you chatting with me. Is there anything that you want to add?
No, I think we covered everything. I mean, I hope this, you know, I hope the Richins find closures. I mean, there's no winners in this whatsoever. I mean, on all sides, everybody lost. So, the best that you can do, is go in, try to follow the instructions that you're given, do your best to listen to the case, and fairly come to a conclusion. I mean, that's what we're tasked with, and I think that's what we did. I commend, um, all 11 uh, jurors that did this with me. I empathize, and I think we'll probably end up getting together with all the jurors, hopefully, at some point, so that we can kind of talk about our experience. You feel for, to a degree, you feel for the jurors that were alternates. They, again, did the same amount of time as we did, and for me, it would have been, I don't know if I would have gotten the full closure by then not being able to deliberate. So, hats off to them. I think they all did an outstanding job.
I've in other cases I've covered, I've spoken with the jurors and the alternates after the fact, and they, in some way, say it's like a member of the family is leaving, that they don't get to stick around for the
Yeah.
end. But I know in other cases too, they've gotten together for barbecues. They have gotten together, like you said. Would you meet with the defense and prosecution if they asked you to? I know sometimes they'll want feedback from the jurors.
The prosecution for sure. Trying to think about that for the defense. It, I mean, I would be willing to talk to them in certain aspects. It kind of depends on. I mean, I'm not completely interested. There's some baggage or backstories on some of it. That's things that have happened after the trial. I mean, I wouldn't be interested in telling them, okay, what could we have done to instill reasonable doubt? Because from my position, the fact that she's guilty, I don't want to instill reasonable doubt. I
Right,
think,
right.
I mean, so that's, again, it kind of depends on, again, I believe a defense attorney, their job is to represent their client and give their client a fair representation. I don't believe that defense attorneys, their job is to get the person off. So there's kind of a differencing, and I'm not suggesting that that's what their position is. I'm just saying in general. I wanted Couri to get a fair trial. I think she got a fair trial. I wouldn't have. I don't necessarily agree with all the choices that they made as for the prosecution, but I also don't know the other evidence that they have. Again, from my comment to you earlier, they kind of went with the hand they were dealt, and it wasn't a great hand. So they
Yeah.
had some serious obstacles to overcome.
Right. All righty, Tony. Well, very good. Thank you. Thank you again for sharing your story with us. And like I say, it's always so fascinating to hear the other side of what happens, that those of us in the public can't see and can't hear.
I appreciate it, like I said, your podcast. I watched the one that you had before. Impressed as to how you conducted yourself and how it was presented, and so for that reason, I was here and willing to speak.
Thank you.
Really appreciate Tony chatting with me and openly sharing his thoughts. He told me after we were done recording, he's not sure if he's going to go to the sentencing or not. He says it might bring him a little bit of closure to kind of see it through. I know some jurors in the past have wanted to see it through, and they go to the sentencing, and then others are like, "No, I'm done. I don't need to follow it anymore." But definitely a fascinating perspective. And if there are any other jurors watching who served on the Kouri Richins jury who want to talk with me, feel free to reach out. Would love to catch up with you and do an interview like we just did with Tony and with Christy earlier too, because I think that your perspective, it helps us all understand things a little bit more and helps us kind of understand the legal system more. So again, my thanks to you. Now, there are some questions that have come in that I want to get to tonight before we go. So, oh, wait a minute. We also have some shout outs here for you, which we try to do here. I apologize if I'm a little laggy tonight. I wouldn't say I'm jet lagged, but recovering from a long week of travel. Not complaining though about that at all. Okay, we have David who is watching us. Thank you, David. Good to see you. Who else do we have on here? Mary K. Guth Miller. Mary K., thank you for watching. Glad you're here with us. Xander, good to have you here. We have Yanni Caracas. Good to see you, Yanni. Appreciate you watching. Tyler Gordon, thank you for watching. We have Lori Wood. Lori, appreciate you watching. And we have, let me find two more. Brad Elliott. Brad, thank you for watching. Okay, let me get to your questions now. Some good questions. What is a pre-sentence report? Don't we already know about the crimes that Kouri did? Why do a report? A pre-sentence report is something that is done before, I believe, almost, at least in Idaho, every felony sentencing. The judge can order a pre-sentence report, or most of them at least, where it helps determine what sentence to give the defendant. And so there is somebody that will go and interview the defendant. In many cases, will interview maybe their family members, will look into their history. In a death penalty case, or a capital murder case, it's extensive. Lori Vallow in Idaho refused to cooperate with hers, and the she just didn't talk to them. And so what they're doing for the pre-sentence report for Kouri Richins, it'll like determine if her rate for reoffending is high. At least this is how they work on other cases. So it'll be a comprehensive report, as comprehensive as they can get, that will then be turned over to the judge and he will review it, and that will help him determine what sentence to give her. Now, because of the crime she's been committed of, it's likely going to be, 25 to life. She'll serve a minimum of 25 and then could be up for parole and could end up getting life in prison, perhaps. Or maybe he does straight life without parole. So that's what it is. In Idaho, those pre-sentence reports are never public. They're sealed. We don't ever get to see them. I'm not sure about Utah, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're sealed. Can we get access to the pre-sentence report? That was the next questions. No, unless somebody leaks it, I don't think you can get access to it. I do wonder if there's a provision if the person dies. Sometimes when a person dies, there goes my screen again. See, I went on vacation and my screen was done. It was ready to go on vacation. When a person dies, you can get access to some records, but I'm not sure. What can you tell us about the civil case involving Kouri Richins? Could she get more prison time? I don't believe she can get more prison time with the civil case. That likely it sounds like it's a more of a money issue. But I'm glad you mentioned that. I want to do a deep dive into the civil case probably next week here on Courtroom Insider. I've been able to glance through a few documents, but I don't know enough about it to comment on it now. So hopefully I'll be able to get access to that civil case and can give that to you. I have more about that in the next week or so. If Kouri apologizes and confesses, could the judge lower her time? I don't. That might play a factor. I know I've covered not murder cases, but other cases where the judge, based on how the defendant acts and if he or she is apologetic and takes responsibility, that sometimes their sentence could be less than it might be otherwise. Um, so yeah, that could be something that is interesting. But I doubt that would affect the judge lowering her time or anything here. Can jurors write a book? Yes, they can. The judge told them that they are welcome to do what they want. I know in other cases, Tom Evans from the Daybell case, he's written 3 books, I believe, definitely 2. I think his third's on the way about his experience in the case. So yeah, they're allowed to write a book. They're allowed to do interviews. They're allowed to talk who they want to talk to. Would you ever interview Kouri Richins? I would. If Kouri wanted to talk to me, I would. I think that she'd be interesting to talk to, and would love to hear from her directly. We haven't really heard her at all. I believe she was interested in maybe doing interviews years ago when she was first arrested or trying to line something up. So I'm not sure what she'll do and what the rules are with cameras in the prisons in Utah. I know in Idaho it's very, very rare that you can get a camera in the prison for an inmate interview, and often it's done on the phone or like on Skype, a video type system. I see the photo of you on vacation wearing a Keep My Mugshot shirt off East Idaho News. Can I buy one? Yes, you can. We have a few left. If you go to eastidahonews.com/shop, SHOP, you can get one there, and we'll send it to you directly, and you can look cool too. Thank you. Are you going to be talking about the Richins case at CrimeCon? What exactly is CrimeCon? Oh, good question. So CrimeCon is it sounds a little weird, like Comic Con, where everybody goes and dresses up as comic figures or cartoon characters or whatever. That's not what CrimeCon is. In fact, you're not allowed to dress up. They really want to keep it respectful, especially to victims. So at CrimeCon, it will be, in the past, I've done panels on the Daybell case with like Colby Ryan and Detective Hermosillo and Kay and Larry Woodcock. I've done panels on Dior Coons, the missing boy from here in Idaho. I've interviewed Marcia Clark, the OJ prosecutor. I've spoken with Gabby Petito's parents. There's panels like that. There's panels about domestic violence. There's people like I don't know, prosecutors and detectives and investigators and even judges, and it's all things legal, like legal cases, and interesting cases and survivors of Ted Bundy, things like that. And so this year, I am confirmed for one event. I'm interviewing the cocaine quarterback, which will be a really fascinating one. If you haven't seen this series on Amazon Prime, this is a quarterback who went on to get involved in the drug cartel and millions and millions of dollars in trouble. And then he ended up serving time in federal prison, and now he's out, and he's going to be sharing his story about what he's learned. And it should be a really good time. As for Richins, if I'm going to be talking about that, I'll let you know. I'll let you know as it gets closer. CrimeCon is end of May in Las Vegas at Caesar's Palace. And if you're interested, you can go on and register. You can stay at any hotel. You don't have to stay there. But use the promo code Eaton, EATON, if you want to go, and you can get 10% off your standard badge. And by the way, the speakers, we don't get paid at CrimeCon. It's not like a money-making thing. It's more, I see it more as a public service announcement. And I'll be doing Courtroom Insiders from there. My wife will be there, and it's just it's a lot of fun to, be around people that have similar interests. Can Kouri write a book and make money, or do an interview like you did with Lori? Kouri Richins, well, she could write a book. I don't know if Utah has slayer laws. I know in Idaho they do, where you're not allowed to make money off of your crimes. I believe Utah does. So yeah, she could write a book. Is someone going to pick it up? Is someone going to publish it? That's the question. And, there's some inmates. I think that Jodi Arias in Arizona has someone updating a blog for her. She's writing a letter and someone's posting a blog. I don't know all the details. So yeah, generally the interest in what criminals have to say kind of wanes after a little bit of time. I did a story here, or a Courtroom Insider here, about Chad Daybell's writings that were going on a website. I think people kind of lose interest, but she could do a documentary too. I guess Kouri could, or there could be a documentary done, and then she could do an interview with her, or with that documentary, and share her story. Lori Daybell did not do that. She did do an interview with me. We didn't pay her at all. We don't pay for interviews at East Idaho News, and we don't pay for materials or anything like that. So we don't do that. But yeah, she could. But there might be some legal maneuvers that, if she wants to make money, I don't know how she could do that. I think that's good for the questions. Okay, everybody, thank you very much for chatting with me. Good to really, really appreciate you being here, for watching Courtroom Insider. Here's where you can find me. I'm on Facebook, Nate Eaton Reporter, X, Nate News Now. I'm on Instagram. Give me a follow. And also, thank you to those of you who have subscribed. Please subscribe to us here on YouTube if you haven't. Would love to keep in touch with you as much as we can. And for those of you watching on Meet and the Eatons, thank you for subscribing over there too. We're going to have some really interesting Courtroom Insiders coming up next week. Well, within the next few weeks. More on the Richins case. Also, there's some new news on Lori Daybell. And I'm gonna walk you through a few things. We also have some special guests coming on who have written some interesting true crime books, and looking ahead to some cases down the road that we plan to follow. So appreciate you all for watching. Appreciate you all for supporting us, for subscribing, and appreciate our juror number 4, Tony, for sharing his story with me. And I hope you have a good night, everybody, and a great weekend. And we'll be back next week for more Courtroom Insider. Take care.